Welcome back to Malaysia Money Matters. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
It's January 2nd, 2025.
Oh.
And we are going to dive right into a fresh stack of news that could impact your wallet.
You know what? It's amazing how quickly things can change, right?
Yeah.
We've got Malaysian company news, international developments, political surprises.
Yeah.
And they all connect in ways that can be pretty surprising.
Right. It's like this giant financial puzzle. And we are here to kind of help you put the pieces together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So first up,
Okay.
we have Alibaba, the Chinese e-commerce giant, making some interesting moves.
Yeah, they are. They're selling off their stake in Sun Art Retail Group. That's that chain of hypermarkets in China.
Right.
For a cool US $1.6 billion.
Wow.
The buyer is a private equity firm called DCP Capital.
So is this Alibaba kind of stepping back from like physical stores?
It seems that way.
I know they also recently sold their in-time department store business.
Right, they did.
Wow.
This sale could signal a strategic shift for Alibaba, doubling down on their online origins and focusing on higher growth areas like cloud computing and expanding internationally. One of the articles I was reading even mentioned they formed a new joint venture to push into the South Korean market.
Interesting. It makes you wonder how this might impact the e-commerce landscape here in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Could this signal a renewed push by Alibaba into our market? Or maybe it means that their competitors, like PDD Holdings and ByteDance, will have more room to maneuver.
Those are definitely things to watch. The Southeast Asian market is so dynamic and it's rapidly growing. So any move by a major player like Alibaba could definitely have ripple effects.
For sure. All right, let's switch gears to a company that's really speeding ahead.
Sure.
BYD, the Chinese electric vehicle manufacturer.
Oh, yeah.
They are making headlines with record sales closing in on Tesla for the top EV seller spot.
They're on fire. BYD sold a massive 4.25 million passenger cars in 2024.
Wow.
That's huge. They're benefiting from strong demand within China, especially with government subsidies making EVs more attractive to buyers.
So are they a real threat to Tesla's dominance then?
It's getting closer.
Wow.
While Tesla still leads in those quarterly sales figures, BYD is catching up fast. Plus, BYD has its sights set on global expansion. This competition could bring some pretty exciting advancements in EV technology and potentially even lower prices for consumers, which would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of strategic moves, Gamuda, the Malaysian construction giant, is making a big splash in the data center world.
They are. They're acquiring a whopping 390 acres of land in Port Dickson.
Wow.
For 424.4 million ringgit to develop this infrastructure.
So this is a really smart play by Gamuda.
I think so.
They're not just a construction company.
Right.
They have expertise in land development, water management, renewable energy. This positions them perfectly to create a sustainable data center ecosystem.
Right.
Which is a big deal in an industry that's known for its energy consumption.
Absolutely. It's a huge factor.
So it seems like they're betting on the future of data. And with the digital world expanding so rapidly, it's a bet that could pay off big time.
It could.
It also raises the question, could this move by Gamuda attract other tech giants to set up shop in Malaysia?
Interesting question.
It could be a game changer for our digital economy.
It certainly could be. Now, let's zoom out a little bit and look at some international news that could impact our wallets here in Malaysia.
Sounds good. What's happening on the global stage?
Well, first up, Bitcoin has had a phenomenal year.
Really?
It more than doubled in value in 2024.
Wow.
This surge is partly due to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission approving those first ETFs that track Bitcoin's spot price.
Okay, hold on. Explain that spot price thing for me.
Sure.
It sounds a little technical.
It's actually pretty straightforward. The spot price is simply the current market price at which Bitcoin is being traded. So these new ETFs allow investors to gain exposure to Bitcoin without actually buying and holding the cryptocurrency directly.
So it's like investing in Bitcoin without the hassle.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this easier access, along with increased institutional interest, has contributed to Bitcoin's price surge.
Interesting.
Now, here's another factor that's boosting optimism in the crypto world.
Okay.
Donald Trump's return to the White House.
Interesting. I know he's been a vocal supporter of cryptocurrencies in the past.
He has. He's even pledged to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the planet.
Wow.
So this has some analysts predicting further gains for Bitcoin in 2025.
It makes you wonder, though, what impact this could have on other global markets, especially with all the talk about potential trade tensions with China.
Absolutely. It's a complex web of interconnected factors.
For sure.
Speaking of China, their service sector is booming. It just experienced its fastest growth in 9 months, driven by government stimulus measures.
So is China's economy bouncing back then?
It seems to be heading in that direction.
Okay.
The manufacturing sector is also showing continued growth, which indicates a positive trend for their overall economic recovery.
Well, what does that mean for us here in Malaysia?
Well, a strong Chinese economy usually means good news for Southeast Asia.
Okay.
It often translates into increased trade and investment in the region.
All right, let's move on to a development that's sending shockwaves through the energy market.
Oh, yeah.
Russia has halted gas supplies to Europe via Ukraine.
This is a major geopolitical move.
Yeah.
With potentially huge ramifications.
Yeah.
The decision stems from the expiration of a key transit deal between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine refused to allow transit that would benefit Russia financially during the ongoing war.
So essentially they turned off the tap.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this has left several Central European countries that rely on Russian gas scrambling for alternatives.
And that legally means higher energy prices for them, right?
It's almost certain.
And those higher prices could ripple outwards, impacting global energy markets.
They could.
Potentially even affecting us here in Malaysia.
It's possible.
It's a reminder of how interconnected we are globally, even when it comes to energy.
Absolutely. Now let's switch gears and look at what's shaking things up in the political landscape.
All right. Where are we headed?
Over in South Korea, they're facing a very unique situation.
Okay.
A tragic plane crash has brought a pause to the intense political turmoil that's been gripping the nation.
What's the political situation over there?
It's quite complex. They've had both the president and the prime minister impeached, leading to a constitutional crisis. But the plane crash, which sadly killed 179 people,
my gosh,
has prompted rival political parties to put their differences aside for now and focus on the disaster response.
It's heartbreaking to hear about the crash.
It is.
It makes you realize that sometimes even political battles have to take a backseat to human tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does make you wonder, though, how this pause will impact their political landscape moving forward.
That's a good question. It remains to be seen how long this fragile truce will hold.
All right, let's hop back across the Pacific to the U.S. How are their stock markets reacting to the new year and the return of Donald Trump?
Well, U.S. stock investors are feeling optimistic about 2025, hoping for a third straight year of significant gains.
3 consecutive years of gains.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It is, but some analysts are urging caution.
Okay.
While the S&P 500 has enjoyed 2 years of gains exceeding 20%.
Yeah.
They point to high stock valuations and potential inflationary pressures as factors that could affect future performance.
So a mix of optimism and caution, then.
Exactly. It's always wise to weigh the potential risks and rewards.
Whew. That was quite a whirlwind of news. Everything from Alibaba's strategic shift to the energy politics in Europe.
Yeah.
What stands out to you from all of this?
I think what's most fascinating is how these seemingly separate stories are all connected. We've got Alibaba potentially influencing the e-commerce landscape here in Malaysia.
Yeah.
BYD challenging Tesla in the global EV market.
Right.
And Gamuda positioning itself at the forefront of the data revolution.
You're right. It's like watching a global game of chess unfold with economic and political moves impacting each other.
Exactly. And that's why it's so crucial for us as investors and consumers to stay informed and understand how these global shifts can impact our lives and our finances. You know, one thing that really strikes me from all this is how all of these stories, from Alibaba's moves to that Russia-Ukraine energy standoff, highlight the importance of diversification.
That's a great point. It seems like spreading your risk is more important than ever.
I think so.
Whether we're talking about investments, energy sources, or even our reliance on specific companies or countries.
Absolutely. Take Alibaba, for example.
Yeah.
They're shifting away from physical retail, focusing on online and cloud computing.
Right.
It's a reminder that even giant companies need to adapt and diversify to stay competitive in a rapidly changing world.
And what about BYD's rise in the EV market?
Yeah.
It seems like having more players in the game could be beneficial for consumers.
Sure.
potentially leading to more innovation and competition in pricing.
Absolutely. More competition often means better products and more choices for consumers.
Right.
It's a win-win situation.
And then there's Gamuda making a bold move into data centers.
Right.
It's like they're not just building infrastructure, they're building a platform for the future.
That's a really interesting way to put it.
They're recognizing the growing importance of data and positioning themselves to capitalize on that trend.
Totally.
It's a reminder that we should be thinking about where the world is heading and how we can position ourselves, both personally and financially, to benefit from those shifts.
For sure. Let's shift our focus a bit to some news that directly impacts businesses and consumers here in Malaysia.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
Okay. So one article I came across highlights concerns from shopping mall operators about a proposed electricity tariff hike that's scheduled for July 2025.
Oh, that's not good news. They've already been dealing with the challenges of post-pandemic recovery.
Exactly. The Malaysian Shopping Malls Association is urging the authorities, including Tenaga Nasional Berhad, to reconsider this hike. They argue that it would add immense financial pressure on both mall operators and ultimately consumers.
Because those costs would inevitably get passed down to us, the shoppers, right?
Exactly.
Leading to even higher prices and inflation.
Precisely. The association estimates that this hike could add as much as 5 million ringgit.
Wow.
In annual electricity costs for a typical mall.
And this is on top of rising costs in other areas, like minimum wage increases and water tariffs.
Well, it adds up.
It sounds like a tough situation for everyone involved.
It is. It's a reminder of how interconnected our economy is and how seemingly isolated policy decisions can have a ripple effect across various sectors.
Well, let's move on to something that affects all of us, taxes. The Inland Revenue Board has released its tax return filing program. For the year of assessment, 2025.
It's that time of year again.
But there are some important changes this year.
There are.
The taxpayers need to be aware of. For starters, submitting tax return forms manually is a thing of the past.
Oh, really?
So it's all going digital now.
That's right. Individual taxpayers, partnerships, various other categories are required to submit their forms through e-filing. No more paper forms.
Well, that makes sense. It's probably more efficient and environmentally friendly, too.
Definitely saves a lot of paper.
Anything else we should know?
One key change is that employers are now required to submit employee remuneration and deduction details electronically. By February 25th, this information will be used to pre-fill employee tax forms.
That sounds helpful, at least for employees.
It is. It should streamline the e-filing process.
Yeah.
However, there are also additional document submission requirements for companies and limited liability partnerships this year.
Okay.
So it's essential to check the Inland Revenue Board's website or the My Tax portal for detailed guidance to ensure you're meeting all the requirements.
It's always good to stay on top of those tax regulations. Now let's circle back to that development in the energy market we discussed earlier. The end of Russian gas transit through Ukraine.
This is a historic shift with far-reaching implications.
After 5 decades, the pipeline that carried Russian gas to Europe through Ukraine has been shut down.
It has.
This was a deliberate move by Ukraine.
Yes. They refused to allow any transit that would financially benefit Russia during the ongoing war. This has left several Central European countries scrambling for alternative gas supplies, and it's likely to lead to higher energy prices in the region.
It really highlights the vulnerability of relying heavily on a single energy source.
It does. This situation underscores the importance of energy diversification and security, not just for countries, but for individuals as well. It's a good reminder to think about our own energy consumption and explore ways to become more energy efficient and less reliant on a single source.
Now, before we wrap up, let's circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the importance of diversification. It seems like that's a recurring theme in today's news.
Absolutely. From Alibaba diversifying its business focus to countries seeking alternative energy sources, the message is clear. Spreading your risk is essential in today's uncertain world.
And that applies to our investments as well, right?
Without a doubt, diversifying your investment portfolio is one of the most effective ways to manage risk and potentially enhance returns over the long term.
So it's about not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. It's like the old saying, don't bet the farm on a single horse race.
Exactly. Spread your bets, explore different asset classes, and consider diversifying across various geographic regions.
For sure.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
All right.
what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember?
I think the most important takeaway is to stay engaged, stay informed, and stay curious. The world of finance is dynamic and ever-changing.
Yeah.
And it's up to each of us to be proactive in managing our financial well-being.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the news that could impact your wallet.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Malaysia Money Matters podcast for more insights like these. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and stay ahead of the curve. Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you would like a deeper dive into all the investment opportunities from today's news, subscribe to my newsletter at moneymatters.substack.com. I will be sharing a deeper analysis of the key investment opportunities from today's news, including what makes these opportunities stand out and how they fit into the broader market trends. By subscribing to the Malaysia Money Matters newsletter, you will also get exclusive insights on my watch list and portfolio and fundamental reports on Malaysian listed companies.